For this procedure, we're going to switch patient from the locator setup to Novaloc. So pretending like this is a real patient, patient comes in, they have the lower hybrid which is already set up with the locator parts and pieces. So the first thing we'll do is remove the hybrid denture from the patient's mouth. You can see we have the two locator abutments, and then we also have the locator housings with the inserts as well. So step number one, we're going to use our locator abutment tool to remove the abutments themselves. There you go, there's one. Second. Alright, as the next step, we're going to remove the retention inserts from this hybrid. So I'm going to be using the locator core tool, and just to demonstrate, I'll be inserting it directly into the housings here, snap it onto the retention insert, then I'll be able to remove it. So core tool goes in, engage, and I can now remove it. See, it comes out, and then can eject it with the tool, and then same thing for the other insert, directly into, remove it, and eject it. Okay, now that the inserts have been removed, now we need to remove the matrix housings. So you can see here, the matrix housings are empty inside. Now the nice thing about the Novaloc system, you can purchase a matrix housing removal tool. So essentially I would just heat the very tip of this tool under a flame, and then I can insert it directly into the matrix housing, and the heat will transfer to the metal matrix housing, which will then melt the acrylic material surrounding it, and I'll just be able to pop it off into place, which I'll demonstrate now. So now we have the matrix tool, removal tool, nice and hot. I'm going to insert it into the housing, let it sit here for a few seconds. All the while it's going to loosen the acrylic, it transfers the heat, and I can then remove the matrix housing as you see here. Okay, now we're ready to remove the second matrix housing, so we've got the tool heated up. I'm going to insert it into the housing. Again, let it sit in place to transfer the heat to the housing itself, which will then melt the acrylic surrounding it. And after a few seconds, you can just simply remove it. Alright, so now that the matrix housings are removed, you can see it leaves an imprint of where those parts used to be. Now I will need to physically relieve the areas where the housings used to be, create some space a little bit larger than the dimension of the previous component. That will allow me to flow some resin into that negative space, enough to capture the new matrix housing that we're going to insert, so that everything will fuse together and become stable. Okay, so we've removed the patient's abutments, and now we're ready to replace them with these locator abutments. I'm going to replace them with the same 2mm gingival height option for the regular neck tissue level implant. The nice thing about these locator abutments, but the Novaloc abutments, is you can use the SCS driver to deliver them, so you don't need a special core tool like you would for locator. So I'll simply insert the SCS driver into the occlusal area of that abutment, and then deliver to the patient's mouth. Here's abutment number 1, and repeat the process for abutment number 2. SCS driver into place. You feel that snap of the engagement, and then directly to the patient's mouth. Hand tighten. Okay, and then if you were going to create a master cast, since we have everything in place here, we'll go ahead and show you how to do that. So we would use these Novaloc forming, fixing matrices. So this is essentially the impression cap that goes on top of the abutment itself. So I'm just going to physically snap this into place, like so. Pick up the second one, again, directly to the abutment. You can hear an audible and tactile snap. Go ahead and zoom out. And then we would take our stock tray and do the final impression with our polysiloxane polyvinyl material and take the final impression. Okay, so now that we've taken our final impression, now we need to insert the analogs. So you can see we have the special Novaloc analogs for the system, and I've already placed one into my impression, as you can see here. Now I'll press the second one into place, and again you hear the audible snap, and we've got the two analogs in place, now ready to pour up our final model. Alright, so what we have here, we've got the mounting collars. So you can see just a little piece of plastic or rubber. This will prevent the acrylic from flowing either back up into the matrix housing or to the abutment itself, prevent it from locking into place. Here we have the actual matrix housings. You can see this one is metal, though they are also available in PEEK. So we will be inserting this directly onto the abutment. Alright, so we'll start first by inserting the mounting collar onto the abutment itself. So I'm just going to place it on, and you can see it just sits on there like so. Grab the second one and do the same thing. And then now we can place the titanium housings onto the abutment themselves. You can tactilely and audibly confirm that they've been seated. You can hear the snap and you can feel it with your fingers. Alright, so you can see here I've drilled out the intaglio surface of my hybrid denture where the titanium matrices used to be, or the housings used to be located. So you can see I've drilled not only through the bottom but through the coronal aspect as well, just because I want to make sure I've got good ventilation when I do seat this denture onto the housings. You want that acrylic to be able to flow up through and not get stuck and create bubbles. So nice clean interface on both sides, and this is ready for pickup now. Okay, with the acrylic now mixed and ready to go, you can see I've got the acrylic here in the dappen dish. I'm going to apply some of the acrylic directly to the matrix housing itself. Alright, now we've got that same batch of acrylic material, and I'm going to load the acrylic into the denture itself. Boy, this setup only goes with the mouth on. Nice and deep. And then finally we will seat the denture onto the abutments, which already had some acrylic surrounding them. You can see the reason why we included the vent holes, allow the excess material to extrude through those holes. Nice complete coverage completely through. And then we'll just wait 5 minutes or so for the material to polymerize, and once it's set, we can then remove the denture from the patient's mouth. Okay, so at this point the acrylic is now hard, it's set up, everything should be integrated. So I'm going to remove the denture from the model here, and you can see, let me turn it around for you. The housings have been integrated. I can remove the little mounting collars, and you can see there's some residual acrylic that flowed around the areas, but everything within the processing area has remained very clean, nice and smooth. So the next step is to remove the excess material that flowed out of the denture occlusally, and then also on the intaglio. Alright, so we've taken the acrylic hybrid back to the lab, and as you can see, we've removed all of the excess acrylic through the little vent holes on the labial surface, as well as the excess acrylic in the intaglio surface. So you can see we have a nice clear opening for both of the titanium housings. There's still a little plastic insert that was left in place during the pickup process, and that protects the internal aspect of the housing and prevents any acrylic from getting up into there. But these little inserts need to be removed now, so I have this special tool here provided by Novaloc, and this can be purchased along with the 2 other tools in the system. This tool has a little toe on the end of it, so I'm going to insert the tool into the housing, engage the toe, and you can see it removes this little retention insert, little protective insert. And then let's do that to the second one as well. So again, inserting the tool, grab a hold of it with the little toe, and there we go. So now both are clear and ready for me to insert the retention inserts in the next step. Okay, so we have the titanium housings already integrated within the hybrid. The next thing we need to do is place the retention inserts. So you can see here, as an example, I have a yellow retention insert. This goes into the titanium matrix itself, and there's a variety of inserts, and if you're ordering the processing pack, it comes with 3 inserts. So we have the white colored light insert, we have the yellow colored medium insert, and we have the green colored strong insert. There are also a few other options for inserts. There's an extra light, there's an extra strong, and an ultra strong, which we can get into at a later time. But for now, we're going to practice inserting the retention inserts by using this special tool, again part of the Novaloc tool collection. So this tool is used for both inserting the retention inserts and for removing these, which I'll demonstrate next. Okay, so now we're ready to place the retention inserts into the matrix housings. I'm going to rotate this so that you can see the intaglio surface here. And Novaloc makes a special tool that's used for both mounting and demounting these retention inserts. So using the insertion surface, I'm going to pick up the retention insert and then place it directly into the housing, and you can hear an audible snap once it's into place. And then we'll do the same thing for the second one. So pick it up with the pickup side of the tool, deliver it to the matrix housing. Again, you can hear an audible snap when it's into place, and confirmation that both of the retention inserts are now seated. Okay, now that the retention inserts have been seated into the matrix housings, we're now ready to seat the overdenture onto the patient. So simply press it down onto the abutments themselves, and when I give it some force, you can hear, in this case, 2 audible snaps, and you can feel it tactilely that I've got confirmation of a positive seating. So this is now in the patient's mouth, ready to adjust occlusion, and then when you're ready to remove it, then you simply remove. Again, you can hear an audible snap when it's removed. Tactilely, you can feel confirmation that they've been removed. And one more time, denture in place, snap, and we're good to go. So, ready to exchange these retention inserts. Earlier, I told you about the Novaloc tool. It's dual-sided. Remember, the first side allowed us to pick up and place the retention insert into the titanium housing. To remove them, we will use the opposite end, which has a different shape. You'll notice this has more of a cone, cup shape to it. And in order to remove them, first we will line it up directly with the yellow retention insert and engage it straight on. And then you can hear it snap. We're able to remove it from the titanium housing. And I can use a supplemental tool here. This was the tool that I used earlier to heat up the tip and remove the locator titanium housing. In the handle of this tool, we have a section here where I can insert, you can see the cutaway there, I can insert the retention ring, tip it at an angle, and it collects it for me. And then I can set that aside. I'm now ready to pick up the green strong retention ring. So switching back to the original surface of the tool, insert it to pick it up, and deliver it to the titanium housing. You can hear it physically click into place, and then we'll repeat the exact same process for the second step. Press down until it clicks into place, and then remove it from the titanium housing. Using my secondary tool here, using the back end with the cutout, slide it in, tip it to remove, and then now ready to insert the green strong retention ring into the housing, physically click it into place, and remove. So in a matter of 30 seconds, you can swap out 2 retention rings. Very useful tool, very easy to do. Positive confirmation via sound and tactile feel of the removal and the insertion. So we've swapped out the 2 sets of retention rings. Now ready to try it in on our patient. So we'll seat the overdenture into the patient's mouth, again pressing directly onto the abutments, and you can hear a loud audible snap as well as have the positive feedback from the tactile feel. And when the patient tries to remove this now, I know you can't really tell from watching the video, but this does require a bit of extra force for me to remove it. And then one more time, seating it in the patient's mouth, pressing down until you hear the snap, you feel it snap into place, and we're good to go.